Welcome to UKIP at Large, and what interesting times in which we live. Now, unless you've been in hiding, you can hardly have failed to have noticed the farce in Greece. It's been a game this week of the political hokey-cokey. You put your referendum in, you take your referendum out. The net result is that, like us, the Greeks are not going to have a vote on their future. We as a country have already committed up to £500 per household for Eurozone bailouts. Our Prime Minister and our Chancellor have told us that no more British taxpayers' money will be committed to bailing out the Eurozone. So that all sounds pretty good, doesn't it? But there's a problem, and it's called the IMF. Though it's based in Washington, it's been hijacked. The last two bosses have been French officials, and they seem to want to spend as much of our money as they possibly can in bailing out Eurozone countries. The New Deal that is being discussed could mean that our commitments to the Eurozone countries could go up by 3 times the amount we've already committed. And the message you've got to impart to your MPs is we're skint. We haven't got the money anyway. We're having to borrow money on the international markets to give it to the IMF to bail out Eurozone countries that should never have joined the Euro in the first place. The message is simple: not a penny more. There's long been a perception that in the Eurosceptic anti-EU movement that somehow it's very angry old men and it's disgusted at Tunbridge Wells and that UKIP is purely a negative protest party. Well, I've got a couple of fairly fresh recruits with me today who I think will dispel some of those images. Janice, you joined us from the Conservative Party very recently. Indeed, I think you stood for the Conservative Party in the general election last year.
I did. I stood in a key module in Batley and Spen in West Yorkshire. And I came over to UKIP because I was not allowed to discuss on the streets of Batley and Spen, where I stood, Europe and immigration. It was an absolutely taboo subject.
So you didn't see UKIP as being just angry old men and misogynistic? And
no, absolutely not. I wouldn't have come over if they had been. We've got our first elected mayor. We've got 13 councillors who are women. On our NEC, our National Executive Committee, there are quite a number of women on there. So no, I wouldn't be here if you were misogynistic.
Good. And of your crop of candidates that stood last year for the Conservative Party, do you think there are more on the way?
Oh, there certainly are, not just women, but there are men as well. There's a lot of people that have been pushed aside by David Cameron because of our views on Europe and immigration, on how we should be cutting the budget, etc. And those views are not being listened to by David Cameron. So I think, yes, there'll be more coming over.
He's losing his own party, isn't he?
He absolutely is. I mean, he was sold to us as the most Eurosceptic Prime Minister and leader we've ever had, so we voted for him as leader, and as soon as he became leader, his narrative died, and he's not only let down the candidates and the people, the foot soldiers within the Conservative Party, he's also let down the electorate.
Thank you. And Sanya, you're 18 years old and you're a rising star in the party. I think at the conference you were the most popular speaker, so I'm going to have to watch my step, aren't I, as time goes on. But one of the other things that's often been said, and certainly in the early days of UKIP's existence, the BBC encouraged this, and we saw this through The Independent and The Guardian, was somehow this idea that if you believed in the United Kingdom, and if you believed that we shouldn't be governed from Europe, that somehow there was a sort of this was a whites only, you know, racially. But honestly, that was what was put to us.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how have you found UKIP?
Well, I think people saying that it's, you know, a white party is completely ridiculous. I mean, we've got Greek members, we've got Turkish members, we've got Indians, and I have to say, at a conference, it was my first conference, I was thinking about, you know, what people were saying, but you know what, everyone was so accepting, and the fact that I'm Indian was not even an issue. Like, I was brought up here, I was born here.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I want what's best for this country too, and we have the same vision, so that's what matters.
And actually, with the Indian community in this country, and with several others, the fact that UKIP is a very pro-Commonwealth party, that we don't just want our future to be tied up with the European Union, I think is perhaps going to bring a lot of people from those communities across to us.
No, definitely. I mean, UKIP encourages immigration in the sense that if people are going to benefit the UK, then it's a good thing, and not bragging, but my family is that kind of family. I mean, we came over to work, and we've worked really hard, and we've worked up in the community so that we actually want to benefit society, not just sponge off government, really.
Yeah, in fact, there is a shopkeeper in Kent, not too far from where you're from,
yeah.
And he always says to me, Nigel, I'm more English than you. And I say, how'd you work that out? He says, you were only born here. I chose to come and live in this country. So I think there is a strong line. Yeah. Listen, thanks ever so much, and I'm sure we'll be watching your rise up through the party with great interest. So there it is. You've been told for years that Euroscepticism is misogynistic. David Cameron even once attacked us and said that somehow there were racist overtones to everything we stood for. None of this is true. Well, it's Mug of the Month time, and the overwhelming nomination is Nicolas Sarkozy, that little French schizophrenic, who on the one hand bullies, shouts at the Greeks and says you must not have a referendum, and then on the other hand stands on the red carpet and waits for the Chinese and says, please sir, can we have some money? What a comical little figure he is. Keep the nominations coming in, keep your proposals for Mug of the Month, send it in here now.